Sheikh, we know that the Prophet ﷺ said not to prevent our women folk from going to the masajid. But I came across a narration where Aisha radiallahu anha said, if the Prophet knew what the women were doing, then he would stop them from going to the masjid. And nowadays, there are a lot of masajid where they do not have a proper barrier between men's and women's section, if any a barrier at all, where the women is completely unseen. They're most likely seen by the men. So, can we or like prevent our women folk from going to the masjid, or can the masjid committee prevent women from coming to their masjid? Barakallahu feek.
Ufikum barakallah. First of all, Akhi, what Mother Aisha said was not a rejection of the Prophet's instruction, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Do not prevent women from attending prayers in the masjid. That is what the Prophet said, alayhi wasallam. Do not. So when she said, had the Prophet seen what the women are doing today, he would have prevented them, is not a rejection. Rather, it is a form of showing her grief of what the women are doing at her era compared to what they used to do at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. So no one in his sound mind would say, okay, the Prophet said something, but due to the change of times, we're going to ignore the prohibition of the Prophet ﷺ from women from not attending. So we will overrule that. No one in his sound mind would say this, as Ibn Abbas himself said, may Allah be pleased with him and with his father. Stones and rocks are about to rain on your heads from the heavens. Stones and rocks and meteors and the likes would come falling on your heads. I say, the Prophet said so and so and so, alayhi salam. And you reply, but Abu Bakr and Umar said something else. As if Abu Bakr and Umar can qualify to refute or reject the Prophet's instructions, alayhi salatu wasalam. And this is outrageous. Nobody in his sound mind would say this thing. Therefore, what Mother Aisha said was only to show her grief and sorrow of how women had become at her era. And if she were to see how women are doing today, that would be a different story altogether. Secondly, you say that the masjids in your community do not have a barrier. Well, for your own information, the masjid at the time of the Prophet ﷺ did not have a barrier either. Men and women prayed in the same place, but the Prophet instructed ﷺ that the worst of men's rows are the last. So the men should be way up front. And the worst of women's rows are the first. So the men should be at the back, keeping as much gap and space between men and women so that they would not interact or be able to see one another and to prevent fitnah. So the issue of barrier or having a chamber or a wall, all of this is not part of the sunnah. If a community would introduce this, just because some of the women may not be properly covered, some of the men may not be righteous and pious enough to lower their gaze to protect the women, this is okay, this is fine. But it is not something part of Islam or part of the masjids that we say we have to introduce. So coming to your question, Salihin, can we or can the committee or the board of the masjid prevent them? The answer is totally no. Totally haram, totally prohibited.